Hi everyone, I'm Alexander Zeitlin. This is the Lockdown Lecture Series for Beginner Viola, adapted from the Alias Music Introductions course, adapted for the classroom. Let's jump into Lesson 2. Today we will be playing an actual scale and taking a look at some actual music. So last week we learned how to play essentially 4 notes on each string, 3, like for example on the A string, A3, A2, A1, A0. And today we're going to take a look at those skills and learn how to play some actual music. So up here on top of the page is a proper scale. It is all the notes in order. You've kind of noticed that if you were playing the 3-2-1-0 exercise, it almost sounds like it has musical meaning, but some things don't quite sound right on it. I want to take a look at the major scale, which actually is part of, has an actual definite harmonic structure and is used in music. And basically, you have all these notes written down on the staff here. So I'll give you guys a brief introduction to how music reading works. So music is written on the staff, which is those 5 lines that you see there. 5 lines makes our musical staff. Horizontal movement indicates movement of notes through time. So in other words, you play like this note, then this note, then this note, then this note, and so on. And as notes go up on the staff, they raise in pitch. They make higher sounds, and as they go down, they make lower sounds. So notes themselves, the most important part of the note is the note head, the circle part right here. We have like black note heads, we have white note heads right here. But where they are is what's most important for the lesson today. There are other parts of notes. There's, for example, the stem. There is the beam right here, and beams are the same as, for example, tails, which we will see later. But for now, we're just going to look at where all the note heads are. And you'll notice that the note heads can either go in between the lines on a space, like this note right here, or on a line itself. And you'll notice that in sequence, they just go line, space, line, space, line, space, and so on. There's a lot of notes you can play on an instrument and only 5 lines. So if the notes need to go extra high or extra low, these are called ledger lines. But that's pretty much all you'll need to jump in here. So all of these notes, and we can talk about note reading later. I suggest you ask your teacher or your private teacher or your class teacher about some note reading, and I might recommend some things for that a little bit later as well. But essentially, to play each of these notes, we need a string and finger combination. To play this note way down here, for example, this is C0. If I pluck with no fingers down on the C string, I get this note. This note is C1. This note is C2, and this note is C3. I'm going to make a note that the second finger here, remember, second finger doesn't have a regular position, is higher second finger. So I'm just going to draw an arrow every time you have to figure out whether it's higher or lower second finger. After this, I go on to G0, G1, G2, higher also, G3. Here I have D0, D1, D2 lower, so not D2 higher, D2 lower, and then D3. And then finally I have A0, A1, A2 lower. And then as I go back down the scale, it's the exact same thing, only in reverse. So now you all get to bear with me while I mark this, and you should also mark this in your own music as well. I'm just going to draw all of the fingers first. You'll notice that I only draw the strings when they change. So I don't have to write like G0, G1, G2. I'm just going to write G, and then when it changes strings, I will write the other strings. So for example, I only need to write that the string changes here, here, and here. So if you need to, pause the video and make sure you have all your markings correct. And then to mark the arrows. Now for this series, you will learn how to write your own fingerings. However, you will not know how to write your own arrows or additional positions, essentially correcting for half steps and sharps and flats. You'll learn that later. And that's something you'll have to also ask most likely your class or a private teacher. But I now have the combination of strings and fingers that I need to play all of this. So what I also recommend is before you, like until you're fluent in reading music, before you start playing anything, just go ahead and like read through everything. That way you're mentally prepared for like how long do I have to like concentrate and what are some of the things I have to watch out for. So you just literally read through it. C0, C1, C2 higher, C3, G0, G1, G2 higher, G3. Keep going with me. D0, D1, D2 lower, D3, A0, A1, A2 lower, A1, A0, D3, D2 lower, D1, D0, G3, G2 higher, G1, G0, and then C3, C2 higher, C1, C0. Did I say G2 higher, G2 lower? Anyway, it's G2 higher. What's marked is correct. So now that you kind of like look through it and you see where everything is, you're going to pick up your instrument. You're going to set it up exactly the way you did in the first lesson, on the shoulder, turn your chin on the chin rest, get your first finger and thumb ready, and now we're going to play through it. So while you look here and make sure all your fingers are correct when you're putting them down, you may find you have to now watch the music, because you're trying to follow where you are in the music. So be ready if you need to, like if you pluck something and it sounds wrong, you might have to look at your instrument and say, wait, what did I do wrong? And then you have to go back and find where you were. That's called tracking, kind of tracking where you are on the page. Don't get lost. So try to, before you look away from the page, remember where you are. Nevertheless, I will play through it once, and you should practice it and then play along with me. So C0, C1, C2 higher, C3, G0, G1, G2 higher, G3, D0, D1, D2 lower, D3, A0, A1, A2 lower, and back down, A1, A0, D3, D2 lower, D1, D0, G3, G2 higher, G1, G0, C3, C2 higher, C1, and C0. Altogether, sounds like this, a little bit faster, but when you practice, make sure you only practice as fast as you can do it well. Don't worry about the speed, just get it right. And make sure you're doing this with your thumb on the edge of the fingerboard. So I now know how to play notes in a C scale, and this is very helpful to me because now I can kind of use the scale as a chart to figure out the notes for any song. So just below it, for example, we have Mary Had a Little Lamb, and I say I have this note that I start with here on the fourth staff line from the bottom, or the second one from the top. And if I find that note here on the scale, like here it is right here, I can see that in order to play it, I need to play first finger on the D string. Okay, so if I just write down 1 on D, that's my starting note for Mary Had a Little Lamb. We'll be going through some nursery rhymes, and the reason I picked nursery rhymes for you guys is because for the most part you guys should all know them. I have run into a student on occasion, like when I work with the really young kids, who are like, I've never heard Mary Had a Little Lamb before, and that's okay, they'll hear it now. But you guys know all these songs, so if you play something wrong, you'll know it. Because you know what the song's supposed to sound like. That's why we use the nursery rhymes. They're just very, very common pieces. So anyway, I start with D1, and then it goes down to the space below it. So like here's D1, down to the space below it is D0. So here's 0 on the D string, right? Oh wait, I don't have to write D because it's on the same string. And then here, it goes down another one, right? So down from D0 to G3. So that's third finger on the G string. Now I should write the string. Then it goes back up, and here it goes up to, we had this note before, so it's D0. Strings and fingers never change, so if you've written it before on the songs, it's going to always be the same. So if you can start remembering where they are, that's better for you. We've had this note before, it's right here. So it is D1, same note, D1, D1. And I've just written down the first two bars of Mary Had a Little Lamb. Sounds like this, if I were to pluck it. And again, I'm going to read it first. So D1, D0, G3, D0, D1, D1, D1. Okay? So sounds like this. And you play it and you know that sounds correct. That sounds just like the song that I know. So you know you played it correctly. Now that you know how to write down and figure out the notes to a song, that's the homework, is to figure out the rest of the notes for Mary Little Lamb, which goes all the way through to here. Now what I will do is I will always mark any arrows that you need to watch out for Mary Little Lamb. There aren't any, or actually for any song that you do, there aren't any for Mary Had Little Lamb. There are no second fingers used. For example, for Twinkle, there will be. Your job is just to write in all the notes. So if you don't have arrows marked for a song, make sure you check with your teacher or check with future lectures where I will mark the rest of the arrows for you. So let's review. We learned how to play a C major scale and how to use it to figure out notes. The homework will be to warm up on your 3-2-1-0, 0-1-2-3 scale. I would say just one time now. You're going to do your C major scale 3 times. You're going to do Mary Had a Little Lamb. You're going to write your fingerings, and you're going to practice it 3 times. So that should keep you busy for a week, or at least for a few days. And that's it. We'll see you at lesson 2. Sorry, lesson 3. This was lesson 2. We'll see you at lesson 3.